It was not only on the military basis, but Donald Trump has also warned Iran not to disrupt oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, saying that the United States would respond with incalculable force if that happens. Now, at the same time, he's described the conflict as an excursion rather than a full war, even as the fighting has shaken global markets and oil prices, as we saw on Monday. That's yesterday. Trump has also revealed he held a positive phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who in fact says he could help in efforts to calm the Middle East storm. Now, for now, the message from Washington remains mixed. Listening to what Donald Trump said before I come back to Priyanka and Mr. Todd.
In your Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. In the long run, oil supplies will be dramatically more secure without the threat of Iranian ships, drones, missiles, nuclear menace, or anything. So the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain safe. We have a lot of Navy ships there. We have the best equipment in the world, inspecting for mines. Again, most of their ships are down at the bottom of the sea, but we will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world if they do anything. In recent years, the regime and its terror proxies have launched attacks on hundreds of commercial vessels. We're putting an end to all of this threat once and for all, and the result will be lower oil prices, oil and gas prices for American families. We've done that. We've done it. We brought it very low. This was just an excursion into something that had to be done. We're getting very close to finishing that, too. In the meantime, during this brief disruption, the United States is offering political risk insurance to any tankers operating in the Gulf. So we're putting up risk insurance. We'll perhaps go alongside of them for protection. We don't think it'll be necessary if it is. And if they do anything, the price will be incalculable. Waiving certain oil-related sanctions to reduce prices. So we have sanctions on some countries. We're going to take those sanctions off till this straightens out. Then who knows, maybe we won't have to put them on. There'll be so much peace. But when the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed. I hope it's not going to be needed, but if it's needed, we'll escort them right through. And we have the greatest mine-sweeping ability. We have the greatest ships, and all of we know exactly where they're placed. We'll get them out of there very fast, but we hope we don't have any of that. And again, if they do that, if they play that game, we're going to hit them at a level that they have not seen before.
Now, my colleague Priyanka Deo and Mr. Todd continue with us on this breaking as well. Priyanka, I'd like to come to you first. We just heard Donald Trump there. How are American citizens reacting to the price rise in fuel? And also, how are American importers and exporters likely to be affected by this?
Well, President Trump has issued, as we just heard, a warning to Iran against any attempt to disrupt global oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's just remember the Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most important energy choke points, with, I would say, roughly, I believe it's 1/5 of global oil supply passing through the narrow waterway every single day. I think disruption there could have major consequences for global energy markets and international trade. U.S. officials also say that maintaining freedom of navigation in the Gulf remains a priority as governments closely watch development in the conflict. and also as well its potential impact on global energy supplies. In terms of the citizen response, I mean, as Mr. Todd pointed out, the situation is so fluid. I think citizens, everybody just wants the war to end as soon as possible and as peacefully as possible. Reactions among Americans are mixed, reflecting both concern as well as uncertainty about the potential consequences of the conflict. Some U.S. citizens say they are closely watching developments, particularly because of the impact on global energy markets and their local fuel prices. As you know, rising geopolitical tensions in the region often lead to volatility in oil markets across, which can quickly translate into higher gasoline prices for consumers across the United States in big cities and in small towns as well. But at the same time, I would say public reaction has also played out across social media, where debate over the conflict, over U.S. strategy, over President Trump's true aim in this conflict, potential economic impacts, it's just too fluid to give you a straight answer at this point.
Right. Well, Priyanka, just a small caveat there. It's not a war in the U.S. until and unless it's been sanctioned by the Congress, which it has not yet. Mr. Todd, I'd like to come back to you on this. As Priyanka was explaining and rather detailing and underlining that Trump has warned Iran against stopping any shipments in the Strait of Hormuz. But the IRGC is already doing that, sir. Now, how many vessels will it take to protect not only American but international vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz, almost 1/5 or 20% of global oil trade every day? Is that even possible?
Yeah, no, clearly it's actually about 30% of the world's oil transits the Strait of Hormuz in any given day, so it's significant. And Trump's reaction here is clear. He understands that both domestically at some point, I don't think we're there yet. I think right now there's more joking in the U.S. about sticker price shock of what the cost of gas is costing. That has yet to translate into political fury, but it will if it goes on too long. So that's one factor. But I also think there's the global reaction that will start to put pressure on the Trump administration that if oil prices continue to spike, and we did see them rapidly come down earlier today, they lost quite a bit of value in terms of the futures when Trump said the war was just about over. So I think Trump's trying to manage global expectations to say, look, we get it. We understand that this pain is real for different countries around the world. He's already reached out, for instance, even to China, to the chagrin of many in Washington, D.C., why he'd be doing that. But he also had the conversation earlier today with Vladimir Putin, and he is relieving these sanctions that are currently in place. And your country was the first several days back when he was basically saying that India could purchase Russian sanctioned oil and that he would be issuing waivers to that until the end of April. In terms of how many ships, to answer your question that way, look, the largest U.S. force of Navy buildup is there since the Gulf War in the early 1990s. There's sufficient force there to do it. And there's already evidence that some of these ships, these tankers, are turning off transponders and are beginning to navigate but unseen. What you can do is if you watch any kind of oil tanking traffic, you'll see them on one side of the strait and then suddenly they're on the other, having gone dark for a while. So slowly but surely that's starting. And I think what, just to put a bow on this, what Trump is basically saying today is, look, Iran, this can get a lot worse for you. I hope it doesn't get to this because it would be a great humanitarian cost. But I think what he's hinting at is taking out the electrical grid, the power systems, the water, any type of infrastructure that Iran uses to sustain its military, but also, for humanitarian purposes, to feed water, et cetera, its people. But he's warning that he's going to come to that if Iran makes the mistake.
Mr. Todd, you raised some very interesting points there, talking about oil, talking about his warnings to the IRGC. But all these questions seem to lead back to one central pivotal question. What was the reason behind attacking Iran right now? Was it an imminent threat to US? Was it an imminent threat to Israel? Or was it a retaliatory threat that the US knew that Israel would be attacking Iran? We've seen all three versions come out of Washington. Which one is it then, sir?
Right. No, that's a fantastic question. I would argue it's none of the above. I think it was viewed in Washington, D.C., they'll never admit this, as an opportune moment to strike Iran, that the regime was never going to be weaker, that the calculus at the Pentagon was that if the U.S. waited a year, 2 years out, the cost to U.S., both in terms of the military necessities required to pull it off, would be much greater, but the cost in U.S. soldiers' lives would also be substantially higher, too. Now, there is great debate in the Congress, as I'm sure your correspondents reported on in the past, where you have the Democrats saying there was no imminent threat, and then you have Trump and the Republicans on the other side arguing that there has been an imminent threat and actually has existed for 47 years in a variety of different ways, that they've been killing Americans. And the White House has been rolling out multiple instances of how that's happened, from the Beirut bombings back in the 1980s to the firing on the USS Cole, other instances of IRGC orchestrated terrorist actions against U.S. soldiers, IEDs in Iraq, et cetera. So they're trying to argue that that's the case. But I would always basically say, to answer your question, it really comes down to, I think the U.S. viewed this as the opportune time to make sure that they can set back Iran's nuclear program, get rid of the ballistic missiles program, and set them back a decade or more. And that's why they did it now. I don't know that it was as imminent as they want to think. The Israelis certainly thought to. And just to end on that point, I think the Israelis were ready to attack on their own because they knew they couldn't wait till more of these ballistic missile sites went deep underground. They don't have the capacity to attack those sites.